Hello, this is Paula again, and I'm coming to you with another idea or a thought tonight. And you'll have to bear with me as I kind of figure out how I want this YouTube channel to work. But to give a brief review, my goal here is to just kind of open up ideas for discussion, thoughts on all kinds of different topics. I've enjoyed in the past discussing things with people of various walks of life, and even various faiths, different religions, and different worldviews. I truly enjoy engaging in the world of ideas. I heard it put one time that it's like a marketplace of ideas. Our world, since the beginning of time, really, human beings have been sharing their ideas with each other. And I talked to some about philosophers the other night and how we each have our favorites, I'm sure, and discussing like why that would be. So at any rate, to get to the point of what I wanted to talk about tonight, it's pretty simple and yet profound, and that is the idea of just what is true, what is truth, what is false, and do we care? Do we care about what is true and false? Does truth really matter? I think it absolutely does. And I think that most people would probably answer that same way, that truth is paramount. And I guess that I'm talking in reference to when people are having debates, or even just simple discussions, and or maybe you're just observing someone else having a discussion, whether on the news channels or in a university debate setting. I mean, whatever. These things are interesting to some people, and they're of particular interest to me when I'm in the mood for them. And so I guess that's why I wanted to bring up the topic of truth. It should go without saying that we're all operating from a base of truth, if that makes any sense. And what I mean is, when we are discussing topics where we might disagree with someone else on a topic, we kind of all approach it that truth is what we're working out from. What are the facts of the matter? What is the truth of a given matter? For instance, like in courtrooms around the world, judges everywhere, I mean, they rely on what is true every single day. Police officers, people who work in a school, down to really people in stores. I mean, every part of our life, we literally count and rely on what is true so that we can survive the world around us. So we don't usually enter into any kind of a debate or an exchange or a discussion having to say anything like, oh, and by the way, let's all make sure we're operating from a truth, with truth as our base. Let's all make sure we're being truthful here. And yet, let me try to explain why it's something I want to talk about. It has occurred to me that it must be the case that sometimes not everybody really is interested in what is true. And perhaps that is a true statement of myself as well. Life can be hard. Reality can be tough to deal with at times, especially when we hit bumps in the road or even have emergencies or traumas or heartbreak. There's big things that happen. And so sometimes it's hard to deal with the truth of those matters, but we do the best that we can. Now, when we're discussing things with people, I think it's fair to assume that we're all operating from the same point of view. But I guess what I wanted to talk about tonight is, are we always operating as with the idea that truth is paramount. Because if it isn't, we might be completely wasting our time. If truth doesn't really matter, if it's not the most important thing, then what in the world are we doing discussing anything? Why do we care what anybody thinks if truth doesn't matter? My point is, it obviously does matter. So why do sometimes people act as if truth doesn't matter? Now, this can come out in various forms. Sometimes we can be in denial. Sometimes we just don't want to accept it. And sometimes it is in conflict with what we hold to be true, with a personally held belief, for example. We might not even realize we have a particular belief about something until it's shown to us by someone else. And we can research this, we can ask questions. I think questions are a wonderful way to get ourselves to think deeper about something. Questions can be a great way to help others think about it and to help us understand where someone's coming from. So this all includes things like being a good listener. Being a good listener can be really hard if all you're thinking about is what you're going to say next to counter some other point. Again, I'm kind of looking at settings where there might be a debate in play or a discussion with people who have varying views. Some people don't like engaging in that sort of thing at all, for the very sheer fact that it might produce some conflict. Other people, though, embrace the idea of discussing opposing ideas, not because they want to be fighting, but just because they find it maybe intellectually stimulating, or they might find it to be something that pursues truth and goodness, or maybe even morality, or helping to correct something that's causing harm to somebody else. In societies everywhere around the world, we see problems. We always have. So it's a good thing to consider the truth of a matter, and I mean even the hard truth of any matter. So even if it's an ugly truth, if it's something that's really unpleasant, you cannot fix a situation until you know what the truth is. And so that's a rewarding thing, to come to the truth, usually. I would hope so. So a lot of this, I'm speaking for myself. I try to be as honest as I possibly can and challenge myself the most in my own views, because I don't want to be holding on to my ideas or even my beliefs for what turn out to be poor reasons. I don't think any of us would want to do that. So we do all have beliefs, we do all have views that we hold, and they do sometimes clash up against others, or maybe others' views clash up against ours, vice versa. I think that we would all agree it's a good thing to pursue peace with each other. In fact, in the world today, there's so many people with different views. I don't see why we couldn't all get along real peaceably with each other. Get along with people living right next door to us that might believe very different from ourselves. And if I can't, do I need to readjust? Do I need to reconsider what my own views are? Or does someone else, And I live in the United States, and I know that, say I have it's hard when there's rules of the road, for instance. I would love to drive faster than I'm allowed to drive sometimes, but I have to adjust my feelings and my wants to the reality of the matter, and that is that if I do drive as fast as I sometimes want to drive, I'm going to get a ticket. I'm going to pay for that. It's going to be painful. There's a painful, repercussion there. There's a consequence, a cause and effect there. I can't go and try to pretend like rules don't exist, or if I do, it's just to my own detriment. So I think that this idea plays over into the other side of things I'm talking about a little bit, in that if I'm playing a game with myself and I think that I'm winning, am I really pursuing a winning idea there? Anyway, this might sound a little bit abstract or might sound a little bit strange to have to even be discussing the merits of truth when there's diametrically opposing ideas being discussed. And yet, I think it does need to be said. Early on in this channel, I wanted to talk about it because I have come to the conclusion that I simply make the assumption sometimes, and maybe I shouldn't, that others care about truth as much as I do. So I say this because very often a discussion will often come to the point, if it's not said out loud, I'm literally wondering in my mind, do you even care about the truth? And do I care? Do I want to be honest? If it's something very lighthearted people are discussing, then, I joke about myself all the time. Oh, I'm in denial about that, or I'm not accepting of this or that, and you can kind of have fun, poke fun at yourself or whatever, but that's not really what I'm referring to here. I'm referring to what is true and good and just, because usually people, when they get a little more serious and they get in a more serious mode of discussion or debate, it's not a joke. What they're discussing is very near and dear to their hearts sometimes, or that of a family member or someone they love, or maybe including children, or, just for moral reasons. We're discussing very serious matters sometimes, and it's not for everybody, but for those that do engage, I would just encourage that for all of us, including myself, that let us let truth be the thing that guides us. And if it isn't the thing that guides us, then why not? Why would you want something that is untrue to be the thing that is guiding the whole endeavor? So those are some thoughts to ponder. I think it's an important thought, and I hope that I've got my point across. And I will just mention this too. If there's ever a video or something I'm sharing in my thoughts and ideas here, and you want some clarification on anything I've said, I would love to give it, because words can be funny things sometimes, and sharing thoughts in the way that they're meant to be conveyed can sometimes be done in a good manner. But if it ever comes across confusing or inconsistent or unintelligible or whatever, just ask, and I'd be happy to confirm and explain a little more what I meant. So anyway, thanks for joining me again, and you have a good evening. Bye-bye.